All right, hot breath of verse. Welcome back to Comedians on Skype Talking Comedy. Today's guest is one of my very favorite comedians, not only for her overall attitude, but her brutal honesty and transparency on stage. And we're going to learn all about that and much more by answering your questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you want to get involved in these Q&As in the future, go into the description and click the link to join our Facebook group. That's where we do all the interactive questions. But in the meantime, in between time, it is time to welcome to the show the hilarious Rosebud Baker, everyone. Welcome, Rosebud, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is where applause would happen if we had audiences anymore, I guess.
I actually, I have sound effects, but I don't think you can hear them via Skype. But the people watching can hear the sound effects. So,
Oh, nice. Great.
so
That's
we're
beautiful.
yeah. This is my big break. I mean, this Q&A show is going to be my big break. Been doing comedy 10 years, but it's going to be a Skype show that takes me to the next level.
I love it. That's
So,
great.
first off, we're going to jump into listener questions, but I actually had a few just to start off with. And one, because a common question we've actually gotten are, especially from newer comics, is like, should I use my real name or a stage name? And I know you specifically with Rosebud is your real name's Rosemary, but you go by Rosebud on stage. What made you decide to do a stage name, and would you recommend it for a comedian?
I didn't decide on a stage name. I've just been called Rosebud since I was a kid.
Okay.
So, I never went by Rosemary. So in a way it's like a stage name, but it's also just like my name as far as it's what I've been called.
Mm-hmm.
So, I didn't, the short answer is I didn't. Um, yeah, that was it.
Oh,
I was just
okay.
like, that's what it's called, and I'll just call myself that. And yeah, because Rosemary feels like someone in a wheelchair. I don't know why. I can picture myself old in a wheelchair, and then I might change it to Rosemary.
Okay, perfect. I was trying to start off with be like, hey, I did a little research, and you're like, actually, I've been called Rosebud my whole life. It's not really that
Well, it's
big of a
kind of a
deal.
it's a tricky thing because it's like convoluted, you know?
Yeah.
It's not that like cut and dry fact. But I was impressed that you knew it was Rosemary because that's hidden pretty much. It's not that I tried to, but I just don't have it anywhere other than government documents. So,
That's what we do here. Yeah, I'm like a private investigator when I research guests, and like my favorite is when people
yeah,
are like, "Yo, who have you been talking to?" That like kind of like
yeah,
Nardwar, but of like comedy. So
right. Yeah.
another popular question we get is in terms of like going full time into comedy. And you started in New York, and you started as an actor, and then you kind of went into comedy just because a friend recommended that would be the only thing you're good at. So it's like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, he was right.
what was that early? Well, one, jumping into comedy in New York, that's pretty much just jumping into the lion's den. But what were those early years like out on the grind? And how have you been able to, because you've only been doing comedy like 6, 7 years, is that right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 6 years.
so like what is that early grind? But then also 6 years, I mean, you've almost become almost like the face of Comedy Central in a lot of ways. You're all over their content. So how were you able to excel so quickly from like that early grind?
I, it's funny because everybody says that it's been so fast, and it doesn't feel like that. It feels like I've been doing it for like it just feels like I've been doing it forever. But I think that's just because of how exhausted I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've done all this research, so you probably know that I'm an addict, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I just put all of that addict energy into working. And the first couple years, I remember I was barking on McDougal Street as you do,
Wow.
and it was like I remember it was like when the polar vortex hit, and none of us had known what the fuck that was. We'd never even heard of that. We were like, what is a polar vortex? And then it came and we were like, holy shit. Like it was so cold that my bones hurt, like it felt like my bones were made of metal. And so it was that kind of cold. And I remember just sitting out there, like, I was so happy. Like I had no idea how unhappy I should have been.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know like how terrible my life really was, but because I just loved it. Like I really loved doing comedy. I loved being around the people. I loved, the community of it. And I really, I really loved the figuring out the craft of comedy. Like I knew that if someone is an actor, it looks like anybody could do it. But the truth is there's a technique to acting. And I was like, I know there's a technique to comedy, but nobody will tell me what it is. And the one thing that where my blind spot is in writing. I don't know what a real joke is, or like how to tell a real joke. So I would watch these specials, and I would like play the premise, write that down, pause it, then play the punchline and write that down. And I did this for like 3 or 4 specials. I think I did it with Rodney Dangerfield. I did it with Schumer. I did it with Attell. Every comic that I could think of that has like really strong joke structure. And don't open that door. The dogs are going to flip the fuck out. So I basically just like went for it and didn't stop. And, and here I am. And I feel like I won't stop until it stops being fun,
Mm-hmm.
and if it stops being fun, then I know the first thing I'll do is I'll probably look at myself and be like, what am I doing wrong that this is no longer fun for me? And then if I'm not doing anything wrong, then it might just not be for me anymore. But that's sort of that's my attitude about it, is I just try to, as long as I'm enthusiastic about it, I'll keep doing it,
Yeah, and to keep like climbing the ladder, was it just you're out on stage, like 4 times a night and things like that? Is it just being around, and then like a booker saw you here that then took you on this showcase, that maybe Comedy Central or an agent saw you? Like, what was kind of the progression from like you in the polar vortex at open mics, grinding it out, to then starting to get that next level of exposure?
Well, it was pretty much that. It was pretty much just barking and trying to get myself booked for at least she's eating some shit on a plant. I was just trying to get myself booked for like 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And then, or 4 years, and nobody recognized what I was doing as funny, and no one really gave a fuck. I mean, people were like, oh, she's funny, but nothing was happening. And then I got my first Montreal audition 4 years in, which I think is kind of late for some people, like for people that are genuinely like nobody knows about. I think 4 years kind of undercover helped me, because when I did do the Montreal audition, that was the year that they were shooting Inside Jokes. And I did an interview afterwards. Everyone who was auditioning was interviewing outside, like introducing themselves and saying like, yeah, this is my first time, blah, 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 kind of saying what their experience was at the festival. And 3 weeks later, I got a call that they wanted to come and shoot with me for like 2-3 days to take back to the network and see if the network wanted to use me. And I was like, this is weird. I don't know how real this is, but sure.
Uh-huh.
And then I ended up booking that. And when Inside Jokes started shooting and I actually got into the festival, that was when things started to like move. You know what I mean? That was when things kind of I got a little bit of momentum. I had worked with, when I got back from Montreal, I had got a new manager. He was getting me out. Inside Jokes dropped. I got this like The Ringers with Bill Burr.
Yeah.
And then that was in April. So it all kind of just like all of that shit like happened almost on its own accord. Like, not to say that I wasn't trying to make it happen, but that wasn't necessarily like the goal. I mean, it was, but I wasn't just going for that. Like, I really wanted to just be as funny as I could be and as authentic as I could be. And I feel like I really tried to make that my number one focus. So like, I think, you know, at least if I was rejected by the industry, I would have been rejected on my own terms. They would have been like, hey, it's not your jokes, it's you.
Yes.
And I would have been like, okay, well, I can't help that. So fuck it. I tried, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
that's so valuable too, to like focus on just being funny and authentic as possible. A lot of comics are, what's going to get me here, there, but it's really, no, just focus on being funny and uniquely you, and let all your opportunities come from that.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times you think about what has happened to you and the stories in your life, and you're like, well, there's nothing really there. That's not really funny. But the truth is, like, it's all there. Everything's there. It's all about, like, what have you been through and why do you see things the way that you see them? And it doesn't have to be the only, you know, you're not going to be the first person who's ever thought of anything. You're not going to reinvent the wheel, but you can be authentic, and that alone will make you unique.
What was it? It must have been your authenticity that attracted Bill Burr to you, because you did his show and then now you have a podcast on his network as well. Like, what was that experience like, getting to work with Bill Burr and you guys connecting?
It was the same. He's like, he's one of those comics that I have watched since before I ever even thought about being a comic. And so I am truly like, I get just stupid around him. You know, like, I can't even speak like the way I normally speak. I just kind of like, I just try to say nothing, because I know that whatever is going to come out of my mouth is going to try to impress him. And if I know him, he's going to feel that, and it's going to be gross. So I just go catatonic around him. I just go completely silent. I was like, you know what? I'll just show up. I'll do my set. I will not try to lick his asshole in any way. And I'll just say thank you for having me and leave it at that, because I was like, anything else I do is going to be gross, because I worship the dude, you know? And nobody wants that kind of responsibility. Nobody wants to know that they're being worshipped. It's gross, you know?
So what'd you say when you met him?
Responsible for
like,
your happiness.
When you actually saw him and met him, then what did you do? What was that like?
I was just like, hey, it's so nice to meet you. Thanks for having me. And then he asked me questions about my life, and I answered them. And I tried to just, if I said something funny, then great. And if not, then I didn't care. I just wanted to come off as like a real person. And that is what it was like. It was also very like, it was a shoot day. So it was just like, we're just going to shoot,
Yeah.
you know? And, so we were at work, and that's great for comics, because it's like, okay, we're here for a bigger thing. We're here to do a job. We'll do the job, and then we'll all go home, you know? And if we connect with one another, great. Burr is like really one of those people that I'm just like, when people ask you, you know, like, who molded your comedy, and who, like, he's such a good example of someone who he is on stage is so close to who he is in person. And that's what I want. I want it to be that, you know, it's like a slight exaggeration of who I really am. So,
Yes.
and he's just such a perfect example of that. And he's so funny. And if you write his jokes down, they don't really sound like, I mean, there's jokes in there, there's punchlines all over the place, but he makes it look like he's just talking. And that's such a good example of like a comic,
Yes.
rather than someone who just knows how to tell jokes.
Yeah, and that's what I admire about you is just like your material and the things you talk about, and that you can find humor in all this darkness, and it comes off as real and authentic and not like, oh, she's trying to be edgy. You know what I mean? But it is like she's literally just
Hmm.
talking about her life and her experiences. And to kind of parlay this into the first question here from Skip Angel from he's out in Louisiana. But he asked, "Do you have a writing discipline or exercise that you use often? And like, is there like a structure you put this dark material through to find the funny on the other side of it?"
Well, my stuff's, I think with my stuff, it's so personal that I have to do it one on one with people. Like I write down what it is that I think is funny.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe it's like a portion of a joke. Like maybe there's something that I just find funny. Like, okay, here's an example. Like I, um, this is not gonna sound funny, but like I was thinking about how, I talk about my sister's death in my jokes, and like right now, that's kind of what I'm talking about on stage, or used to be.
Right.
And
Yeah.
one of the things that kind of has stuck with me for years is I remember being at the wake and everybody talking about how beautiful she looked, and I remember being like, uh she looks disgusting. Like she's dead. You know what I mean? I don't know what you guys are talking about. Like that. And I remember that being something that it's funny to me because it's so like, it's just one of those things we do as human beings where we're looking at a dead body. If you've ever seen a dead body, they look like they were like a rough draft at a wax museum. Like they look fucked up. And like someone left it in the heat, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I remember all my family being like, she looks so beautiful, and me being like, what? Um, and so I was trying to write that. And so I'll talk to certain people that I know and be like, is this funny to you? And they'll be like, yeah, that's funny. Maybe if you're going to go, you either need to go harder on it, or you need to maybe water it down like a little bit. And I don't know how I do that, but I just, it ends up happening. Like if I have an idea in my head of
Mm-hmm.
what is funny, I know I'll end up writing a joke about it, especially if it won't go away. So is it like an exercise the same way that you would, do inventory at your business? No, but it's like, it's an exercise in kind of, uh, staying connected to what I think is funny and writing it as many different ways as possible to see what comes out and what sticks, you know?
So it's like, this is funny to me. Let me bounce it off other people that I respect their sense of
Andy,
humor.
can you plug that in so that I can use the other one? Because these are dying. My computer is, it's fucked and it doesn't have volume. So if my AirPods die, then the interview's over. I'm sorry. I didn't
Oh,
mean to
snap.
interrupt you.
No, you're totally fine. Andy's
Yeah.
a
Yeah. But
good sport there. Yeah.
he is. He's a good sport. I'm surprised we haven't killed each other.
I am
Actually, it's been
too.
40 days together now.
Yeah. And how long had you been
Yeah.
dating before you like jumped into quarantine together?
We were dating for 5 months.
Okay. So you still a lot to
Five
learn
months.
about each other. Yeah. What is the living
Yeah. And then we got
situation there?
engaged 3 days. We got engaged 3 days into quarantine. So we were like, yay, cool.
How did he propose?
Um,
Or did you propose?
we, no, he proposed, but, we were watching Eternal Sunshine. We
Uh-huh.
were watching a movie and then, eating. He went to Little Dom's and got, Italian food, and then told me that there was a ring in the sauce for the tiramisu. And I was like, not a thing. You don't put sauce on tiramisu, so I was not surprised. I'm not I'm like the worst person to be. I'm just the worst. Because I can't pretend to do something that isn't like, I'm not going to pretend to be surprised about something
Right.
if it's not surprising me,
Uh-huh.
which doesn't mean I'm not excited about it. I was super excited. I was like, I really feel like Andy and I are perfect for each other. I've never been able to be so much myself with anybody in my life. Um, but he was like, "Were you surprised?" And I was like, "No, why? Why would I be surprised?"
Did you cry? Were you like, yes, of course? Or were you like, tiramisu? Really? That?
No, it wasn't that. It was, he said I wasn't, he said I didn't seem excited. And I think that's just what happens when I get excited. I think I just like, I think I just try to like put a lid on it, which is something I'm working on in therapy. Because I don't express my emotions fully. I just go like, I shut down. So I was just like, yes. And then that's it. I was just like, yeah.
Oh, okay. So romantic.
So yeah, I might as well have fucking given him a handshake and asked him to sign paperwork. Like I did it like a business deal.
Oh my
Anyway, I wish
gosh.
I had a do-over.
That's so beautiful. What a beautiful proposal. It's in the dessert. You have extra dessert.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
congratulations. Congratulations. Yeah, I've been married a little over 3 years now. It's amazing. So,
yeah,
welcome.
yeah. When you say amazing, that feels like you're leaving a lot out, but okay.
No,
I'll take your word
I
for it.
really do like. I mean, yeah, I really do like being married. I mean, it takes away that whole like when you're dating or pursuing. It's like it's a lot of work and it requires a lot of thought and like what ifs. But
Yeah,
now it's like you're married and you're like, well, I mean, whatever. Where are we gonna go at this? I mean, there's always
right.
divorce, of course. But my parents have proven
Yeah.
that a couple times. But it like yeah,
Yeah,
it lets you focus on what's more important than like, oh, how many swipe rights did I get today? So
yeah,
it opens up a new world, like having a dog. But you guys have two, so you're
yeah,
ahead of the game.
yeah. We're both addicts in recovery, so we have impulse control issues, and all of those have come out in the quarantine. We have adopted a puppy. We've dyed Andy's hair. I'm cutting my bangs. I joined TikTok.
Oh,
We got engaged. I've done everything that you could possibly do in quarantine. I mean, other than get pregnant, I feel like I've done every single thing that people are like, hey, maybe hold off on that.
there's still time. There's still time.
Right.
So let's
Yeah.
let's jump back into these questions here and let's see. Oh yeah, we have a lot. Yeah, people were really excited when they were seeing you were coming on here because there's not much. There's a lot of content. You have something? Yeah. Oh, her sound died, so we're gonna take a moment for Rosebud's sound. But thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Hold on.
Yeah, no problem.
Hello?
Hello. Are you there?
Fuck.
It's all right.
1 second. It doesn't work. It doesn't work with those.
You can't hear me?
1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
1 second. God damn it. Can I use yours?
Isn't that beautiful?
Can I use yours?
Sure.
Oh, that's
I'm
love.
sorry.
It's just these.
He's sharing his
Fuck.
earbuds with her.
Sorry.
No, you're great. Because I can hear you, but you can't hear me. Sounds like, yeah. I do love how angry she's getting, though, because that's my favorite part about her humor. Is how
Okay.
authentically.
Hi.
Oh, you can hear me.
Sorry.
Okay, cool. I was talking to the group. I was like, I
Yes.
love how
Sorry.
angry you're getting. That's my favorite part about your humor, is how you can just, you're so cutting with it.
I was just like, God fucking damn it. You fucking. I hate it. It's like I can't, and you can't get your goddamn computer fixed because, of course, they're like, oh, this isn't a fucking essential business. And it's like, how is it not essential? It's the only way we can fucking talk to people right now.
It's like, geez, I know we don't have
anyway.
masks, but can I get a computer, please?
Yeah, that's all I want. I just, everyone in America to get a new laptop. Anyway, I'm sorry about that.
No worries at all. Thanks for kudos. I'm gonna do an applause for Andy for sharing his earbuds with you. That's so generous. That's love right there.
Could you hear me that whole time?
I could hear you, but I guess you couldn't hear me. But
okay.
I could hear you though. But you weren't.
Oh,
you weren't,
weird.
Yeah, you weren't responding, so I was assuming my voice wasn't going through.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, what was the question? You were about to give me another question.
We were about to start hammering out the viewer questions here. So, let me see. Let's do this is a good one. Let's do Carly Sherrick. She was super jazzed about this. She said, would love to know how you see comedy evolving and adapting to social distancing guidelines that may last for a significant chunk of time. Also, best pizza in NYC.
Okay, best pizza in NYC. I have a real soft spot for Fiore's next to the Grizzly Pear, which is where I would feed myself when I was coming up. They've got these like tiny little pepperonis and they're awesome. Mm-hmm. I love Fiore's. Let's see. And then in terms of how comedy's like adapting to this shit, here's what I think is the boom took a real hit, like for sure. We were in the middle of a comedy boom that just got this isn't going to be uplifting. I just need to preface it with that. But I think what is going to happen is the people that were doing arenas and, theaters are going to go back to doing clubs and doing the road. And I think, because it's like even theaters is too many people in one place. So the people that were just starting to headline, like myself, mm-hmm. and the people that are working towards headlining, we're all going to get, I think, bumped down. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't know, but that's kind of like logically where I see things going, because it's, they're not going to give somebody, like they'll give me maybe headlining dates like on a week, I'm hoping. But they're not, or on a weekend, but they're not going to give me like a whole weekend if they can get Bert Kreischer in there, because he's just absolutely going to sell it out, and people will pay more. So each ticket will be worth more, and they can keep the social distancing by upselling tickets. That's what I'm seeing is going to happen. Mm-hmm. I also think a lot of clubs are not going to be able to survive this, and I hope that they can.
Yeah.
But I don't see that happening because, how much were they making to begin with? It's already like, it's like I don't know. I think we're a little bit fucked, but on the bright side, I think the people who are really meant to be doing comedy and the people who really love it will stick around. And I think the people that were in this as kind of like, that saw it as a way to get into the business, because comedy is like a Ponzi scheme. You know what I mean? It's like, so you can climb quickly. You have access to people and connections with
Mm-hmm.
people that you wouldn't necessarily have because comedians are so accessible. So I think there's people that saw that and that were involved in it that didn't belong here, you know? And to those people, I'm so happy to say fuck off
That's what
because
Mark
I
Norman said
just,
too. Yeah.
yeah,
Talking about it'll thin the
yeah,
herd.
and
This will thin the herd in a good way.
yeah, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And this was actually the first question, and I scrolled past it, but Skip had also asked, what did you do for your SNL audition, and do you have any bizarre stories of the experience?
I didn't have an SNL audition. I showcased for SNL and I did my stand up, but the whole time I was like, why am I here? Because I didn't know what they, I was just like there with like Larry Owens and a bunch of people that did characters and stuff like that. And I was sitting there the whole time just being like, okay, cool. I'm so happy to be here. I think they were looking at me on a writing
Mm.
for writing, but I don't know. There was very little about that audition that I was told, mainly because at the time I had reps that didn't didn't do a great job of communicating with me what was happening.
So they were just
Um,
like, SNL wants to see your stand up, and did you go in and do like the standard? You show up at the studio stage, and you're just doing stand up in front of like three people type deal.
no, I did it at UCB. So they have
Huh.
showcases
Gotcha.
before they have auditions, and they just
Gotcha.
kind of like look at you and they see what you do and they get to know you. And I had just gotten back from Montreal, and so I just did what I did at Montreal. I just
Cool.
did my stand up. Yeah.
Very nice.
I wish I had more. I wish there was a more interesting thing there, but it was just the same as any other show.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I didn't realize you had auditioned for SNL, but but then he asked that, so I was like, oh, he must have known something. But yeah, more of those showcases because they'll
Yeah.
do JFL showcases as well, where it's kind of like a comedy club JFL night or whatever, and then they may not pick anyone
Right.
type deal. It's kind of more like a
Right.
stand up show. Yeah. So this is
Mhm.
about JFL, and there's a lot of questions about inside jokes, which is where I first found you. And after episode one of that, I was like immediately Rosebud fan, like instantly, and I've been a fan since then. So there's actually a lot of inside jokes questions. Which did you get a lot of like new fans and new like followers from that show? Because it was a very good show.
Um, I got uh I got some, yeah. Like I still get messages from people being like, I just saw it, I loved it, you're so funny, blah blah blah. And it's really nice to hear that because, when that was all filming during the middle of like the Me Too stuff,
Hmm.
and the the executive at Amazon got fired because of something involving that. And I guess a woman had harassed someone. Anyway, she was fired, and so the new exec that came in did zero promotion for it. I mean, it was like there were some posters around the city, but that was it. And I was like, well, this sucks because no one's going to see it. But because it's up there, people find it, and that's the beauty of a streaming platform is like they continue to find it and to look at it and they see what you've done and where you've gone since then, and it's great for that. Like it's uh and I feel like that was a show that I could really be proud of because when I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, that's me. I don't feel
Yeah.
like I didn't feel like I was painted in any way that was different than who I am. And I yeah, I guess the short answer is yeah, that people like the show, So that's great. Makes
And
me happy.
Imri asked how much JFL changed your career, both the festival and the TV show. Like, how did that change your career?
I would say the show changed I- you know, I don't know. Like I wonder sometimes would any of this have happened without inside jokes? And I honestly think that it was just like a perfect kind of combination, because JFL on its own, like, it can change your career, but you have to go there not to fuck around. Like, you have to go there with this idea. And this was something that occurred to me while I was there, is I was like, oh shit, like, I've just thought about getting here. I never thought about what would happen after this. And so the whole time I was there, I was kind of having this like panic attack / realization that I had no goals past JFL. So I was like, I need to get really serious about what could happen after this, and like steer my career in a way that I wanted to go. And I met my manager there, and I had a meeting with him, and I was like, this is what I want. I want to be one of the most well-respected comics. I was like, I don't want to be seen as a female comic. I don't want to be seen as like, I just want my voice to be unique enough where people stop looking at it as just female. And I want to be respected in comedy the way that men are, you know? And I was like, and the thing about it is, like, as a woman to do that, I feel like we have to try. And I'm not saying it's like we have to try harder, because I think everyone is trying really fucking hard. Anyone involved in comedy is trying really fucking hard. But I think with women specifically, we have to have a very strong idea of exactly what we want to be seen as, so that we don't get painted in a way that's like, oh, this is like a niche comic. Like, she speaks mostly to this group of people. I love it when, like, I'll go on, I was like checking the reviews on my podcast, which is like my current obsession. I just like check reviews on that fucking thing. But I saw this one where this guy was like, I am a tired old man and I love listening to Rosebud. And I was like, that makes me so happy, because I want to be relatable to tired old men, and I want to be relatable to millennial women, and I want to be relatable to Gen Y, and I want it to be universal enough that people can relate to me, even if they don't like me, that they'll like relate.
And I think that's where the authenticity.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it 100% makes sense, because that's my goal with my comedy as well. And starting in Atlanta, I would do shows where I would be like the only white guy in the zip code. And then I would go and do like a hipster bar where I'm the only guy not wearing a beard and flannel shirt. And I wanted to make sure that my jokes worked in like all of those rooms. And what I found, and I think that's why yours is translating so well, is that authenticity. That's what really breaks whatever social, economic, gender differences, is if you're authentic. I feel like our just biological senses will automatically gravitate towards authenticity.
Yeah, I mean, people can feel when you're lying.
Yes, exactly.
And they can feel when you're lying to yourself. So, like, if you're in that stage of comedy where you're like, maybe I'll be this kind of comic.
Right.
Or maybe I'll be that kind of comic. Don't worry about any of that. I would say, write about something that you really fucking know about, and see where it goes from there, you know?
Boom. And this ties into writing. This next question from Sasha. Sasha asked, what's some of the best advice you've received that has helped you improve your joke writing?
Don't try to be right. Try to be funny. That's the best advice I've ever gotten, was just don't. Because, you know, you get into that trap where you're trying to prove a point and it's not funny, you know? And a lot of my comedy is trying to prove a point, but the funny has to be there first. And if you end up losing the point to get to the joke, or if the point is ridiculous and the joke is stronger, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, you're not up there to preach. You're not up there as like, to be the person that people look up to. You are a clown, and just be funny. Like, even if you're a smart clown, be a smart clown. Like, you got to be a clown first. Just be a clown who's kind of smart.
Yes.
You know?
Funny. It has to be funny. That, like, at the end of the day, whatever it is you want to be, like, first off, yeah, it has to be funny. You can be ironic and cool or whatever, but is it funny? Like, that's
Yeah.
that's the equalizer on everything. And we some have gotten away from that, and it's like comics think they can just deliver their way into attracting an audience, but it's like, is it funny? Just, is it funny?
Yeah.
You know, your
Yeah.
absurd reference that 4 people got, you know, is it going to be funny in front of people that actually like matter, you know?
Yeah. Like, there's, this is and it's a trap that I fall into all the time. Like, with that premise that I was telling you about with my, with like seeing a dead body, it's like dead bodies are ugly, you know, they're not good looking, but we call them good looking. So like we'll be like, oh, she looks so peaceful or whatever. And it's like, you know, I know that I'm right about this, but what's funny about that? And I'm trying to like figure that out. So it's like a verbal puzzle, you know, and if it doesn't end with making you laugh, it's not going to work on stage. Like, that's it, you know?
Boom. And this next question actually jumps into the other side of the performance equation. So we're talking about writing, but Samarpan or Samarpan, I'm sorry, this is actually their first time tuning into a Q&A, so welcome to the Hot Breathiverse. But they ask, when did you realize that you found your voice?
I think, I don't know. It's so like, it's one of those things that I think I still am trying to figure out. I think there's a lot that I still have to do. I wouldn't say that I've completely found my voice as a comic. I know I've found like where my interests lie. I know I know that I'm able to pretty much be myself, but I also feel like if you're a real person, that answering that question as if you've already figured it out is stupid, because you're constantly figuring out who you are, and your voice is going to change. And as long as you can keep up with, you know, what is ringing true for you, that's how you know you're still in your voice. You're still like expressing things from your voice, from your perspective. And people talk about it like it's this thing out there that you'll like find someday, and it's not. It's just who you are. It's like when you're in the car with your best friend and you say something that's hilarious to both of you and you don't even know why it's funny. That's like your voice. You hear it in these little moments, and then it creeps, it finds its way into your comedy. You know, like sometimes I'll listen to my own comedy and I'm like, God, I sound so fucking angry, and I sound so like I sound so butch, you know? And it's like I feel shame about it. Like I feel shame when I listen to myself. But that's, if you don't feel a little bit of embarrassment, you're not risking anything. So that, I think, is like a good indicator, you know, is if you're getting off stage and you're like, do they just like know too much? You know?
I love that. If you don't feel any embarrassment, then you aren't risking anything. Kind of like if you're not, it's almost like if you're not bombing, you're not trying, in a sense. Like you're not pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I love a comic who's willing to eat shit. I love those comics.
Me too. And Imri had actually asked, what is your biggest, most embarrassing bomb? What is Rosebud's one that you just will never forget?
God, I'll never forget this time, and it's so funny because it's such an inconsequential bomb in terms of like the broad, like the overarching thing of my career. Like it doesn't matter. It was at LOL Comedy Club, which is not a club. It's like a scam operation in Times Square.
That's where you started, right?
I went up. Yeah, and I went up and I just bombed so bad. Like I forgot how to do crowd work. Like I'd never bombed in a way where my brain just like stopped working. You know, where you get like bomb brain and you don't even know how to be like any birthdays in the anniversaries, and you're like, what? The whole audience is looking at you like, what the fuck did you just say? And I remember I just like left my body. I was like, because I walked into a bathroom stall and I just had to wait until I stopped sweating. That was what happened. I mean, I really just sat there and just sweated and tried to figure out what had just happened and what had I done to deserve that. So, yeah.
What went wrong? Why do you think you bombed so hard?
I think I was unprepared for what was about to happen. Like, I think I was sitting on the side of the stage. I was like, okay, I had built it up in my head in a way that was like, this is the most important thing. If I fuck this up, everything's over. All of that. Like, you start telling yourself these stories and then there's too much on the line and you go, okay, well, there's no way that I could perform with any kind of relaxation or any kind of ease if I'm making this into such a life or death situation, you know? And so you kind of have to realize if you're dying on stage, you're not really dying. Like, you're going to be fine. You got to adjust whatever it is that you have to adjust. And for me, that set taught me no set is going to kill me. Like, I think I just needed to bomb like that, you know?
Yeah. And it's
I needed to bomb in a way that made me, I was just in my head. Exactly.
Do you have a pre-show ritual now? Because it seemed like you were almost doomed to bomb just by how you were setting yourself up before you even got on stage. Do you have like a pre-show ritual now that helps you get into that mindset?
No, if anything, I try to make every show as low pressure as possible. I try to just like do what I would do on any other day. Like, if somebody calls and I have an important date or an important show that night, I always pick up just because I'm like, I would pick up on a regular day, you know?
Yeah.
I need to lower the status of this show in order to do well. So I act in a way that is like, it's just a job. It's just like, I'm going to go. And at this point, I've had so many fucking nerve-wracking, and I'm lucky to have had them, but nerve-wracking opportunities where I just thought, if that bomb hadn't happened, I wouldn't know how to act in a way that made these things possible. You know, like with auditioning at the Cellar and then auditioning at the Cellar a second time, and then, auditioning for Montreal on camera, knowing that if people saw me bomb, they could go back and rewind and watch again, you know, like that kind of shit, that pressure of filming inside jokes, helped me in such a huge way. Like, I've done so many TV tapings now. I've done so many sets for TV, and I did them all in like a 4-month period. And a lot of them were bad. Like, I bombed several times on that, on that show. And I just had to be like, well, bombs happen.
Yep, they do.
I really had to do that. So, and it relaxed me to the point where in the middle of the ringers, I said some joke that I didn't mean to tell that I knew would get me fucking canceled if they filmed it, if they aired it. And in the middle of my set, I just looked at the camera and I was like, do not put that on TV. Like, I don't know what else to say. I just don't do that, please.
Right.
This will be over before it starts. And then kept going with my set. So it helps in a lot of ways for that.
So when the show's not going well, and this ties into Earl Anderson's question, he asks advice for winning back a room. So how, when it's not going well, will you judo the audience back to being on your side?
Well, I think I kind of have a privilege. I'm speaking from privilege right now because, I mean, look at me. I'm not like I don't walk on stage and people go, "Ah, fuck her." You know what I mean? I have like a really friendly face and a really friendly like look. And then, so all I really have to do is like smile and ask somebody if they're dating. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not that hard for me to win a room back. Just because of how I look. And so I'm not even like the right person to necessarily ask that. Have I ever said anything that went so far that it walked people? Yes. I've definitely I was at Zany's in Chicago and I heard somebody flip the fuck out at the end of my show. And it was like, I was like, I've been saying horrible shit this whole time. You know what I mean? But for some reason, this one joke just left this person. They were like, well, forget this, you know? And if anything, I was just proud of that. Because I was like, oh, cool. There's a person that I wasn't able to win back. Like, what a nice challenge. I think it's a fun thing to try to learn how to do, but you kind of have to be aware of what you look like, how much of an uphill battle that's going to be, and who are you when you are trying to get a job, you know? It's sort of, you have to go into that energy.
Yeah, and it sounds like you go back to to being in the present moment. So if it's not going well, you almost, like you said, I smile and I will engage the audience in a kind way with a smile. It's almost like you have to take a step back, be like, okay, I'm plodding through my material bombing. Let me take a step back and just be in the moment with this audience, engage them in a genuine way, and that will almost kind of break the tension.
Yeah. I mean, even if they don't like me and I don't like them, if I'm smiling, looking them in the eyes and acknowledging that fact, then that alone can break the tension, I think.
Yes.
Like if I'm just looking at someone in the front row and just going, hey, like, how are you? You seem to hate me. What's going on? You know what I mean?
That's so great. Yeah.
Acknowledging their body language, anything that you are picking up on in the moment, I think helps.
Yeah, I just posted on our YouTube a review of Chris D'Elia's special and just his use of smiling and how he would use a smile as tags to his jokes, or almost they would punctuate his jokes. It's like he was really good at remembering to smile, and that really coerces the audience to get on board and mirror your smile, and they're already halfway to laughing if they're smiling. So super powerful. Yeah. Super powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Brandon Cressy asks, worst city
to do comedy in? I don't think I've done comedy in enough cities to really answer that question. And also, why does that matter?
I don't know. Yeah, it just popped up. Yeah. Brandon, she's trying to get booked in cities vendetta right now. We're not going to.
This guy's just got a real vendetta.
Or it's like Toledo or something. He's like, say Toledo. Say Toledo. Yeah. Actually, I have nothing against Toledo. I don't know. Book me.
I mean, the one place that I had, I would say kind of like a shitty time, but it wasn't the town. It was just the circumstances. It was 2 days after I had to put my dog down. And then I had to go open for Pablo Francisco in Appleton, Wisconsin. And I was like, this is the worst. I was just like, I can't do this. This is awful. Yeah. I remember I had a panic attack on stage. And I thought, what if I had a seizure? I was like, if I had a seizure right now, they would all think it was an act out and I would be dead before they realized that this wasn't a bit. And I had that realization, and I couldn't say it out loud because I was in the middle of a panic attack about it. So I just had to get through my set thinking, I'm not having a seizure. I'm not having a seizure. I was just like having this like crazy traumatic like fucking moment up there, and I just had to like finish my set, and it was so bad. Like it was so awful. It was like if you were it's like if you were John Wayne Gacy and you were in your clown costume realizing you were about to get caught. Like that was what I felt like. It was just like, why right now is this like what was happening in the world was so not aligned with what was happening in my head and in my body that it was like comically awful.
How did you get through it? You just were like focusing on one bit at a time type deal?
I just did my fucking set. I just like
set,
mailed
yeah.
it in. Yeah. And I was just like, just get through your fucking set and go home and just lock yourself in that hotel room and order a pizza. And that's what I did.
Well, that's good advice for anyone. Just think about pizza if you're having a panic attack on stage.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, don't worry. Brandon asked about worst city, but then he also called me Michael Cera. So he's not a credible source. Brandon's not credible.
I don't know, man. That was pretty on point. I'll be honest. He's got. I hate to go sign that.
Yeah, I've heard it before. I actually took a photo with someone after a show because I thought I was Michael Cera, and I just played along with it. So,
great. That's a great move.
Just go.
You should open up a cameo as Michael Cera. Just see what happens.
That's a great idea. I should start getting some of this quarantine coin.
Yeah, exactly. Get the bag. Secure the bag.
Oh, Matt Taylor says, love Rosebud. She was my favorite on Inside Jokes. Oh, great.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
Let me see. We have a few more here. Dylan O'Neill, who is actually all the way from Ireland, actually, this one's coming from. But he said, first off, wanted to say I loved you on Inside Jokes, Rosebud, and I wondered, as a comedian, how do you break down the most vulnerable parts of your life and make them humorous on stage? I'm trying to do it with gambling, but haven't been able to break through yet.
I think I think I already went into this a little bit, but I can add one more thing to it,
Yeah.
which is that, you know, a lot of times you'll you'll feel uncomfortable about the bit, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not funny. You might just be uncomfortable revealing yourself on stage. And so what I would say is, if you think something's funny, keep telling the joke until you're so comfortable telling it that you don't care if it bombs or not. And at that point, once you're comfortable saying it, then I think the funny comes through.
Ooh.
But it takes some practice to just be able to be like, all right, you know, these people are going to find this out about me, but how do we know that those people that are listening to you don't have fucked up shit that they're trying to hide? You know, because a lot of times people won't laugh at stuff, not because of what you're saying, not because what you're saying isn't funny, but because they're uncomfortable laughing at that part of themselves. So I would just say, keep, you know, be on your own side, be your own advocate, keep telling a joke until, you know, run it by your friends. Your comic friends can help a lot with this shit because they can see what's funny about something before you can sometimes. And then you can build off of like the things that they've helped you with. I had to run the jokes about my sister by so many people. I had to get tags from people. I needed help with that bit. And it's not done yet, but I think if you just keep working at it, it does end up, you'll get there, is what I'm saying. If you know what your thing is, if you know what your dark, where your skeletons are, and you're willing to just go there, then great. That's like, most people don't even know that. They don't even know what part of themselves is like shameful,
Oh,
you know?
great point. Yeah, knowing where the skeletons are and then being willing to talk about them. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And it is like yours, it starts off with you knowing there's something funny there. You just haven't found it yet. But if you believe there's something there, it seems like just it's a matter of time, if you're willing to put in the work to find it, that you'll eventually find it with those steps you just said. So
Right.
that's super
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah. And I think that's what Leo was saying with like pretty much, so you naturally think of a shock value joke or awful thing that's immediately funny to you, and then you later figure out a better way to build it up and soften the punch with like taking it to people that you trust. Yeah. It's a good breakdown there, Leo. Yeah. So just looks like we have like two more here. If that's okay with you. Are you good right now, Rosebud?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Trent Babb asks, what's the difference between act outs and overselling it?
I would say, you know, I think it's, the only difference is like the way that you judge it. I don't think it's like you could watch somebody who's great at act out, and well, like sometimes you'll see an act out in a place where it doesn't need to be. You know, you'll see a comic kind of doing with their body what they could, or they could just like tell a joke. Like the joke is there and the joke is strong enough, but you see them doing like a phone call or like a, you know what I mean? And so I guess there's something about overselling it that just feels inorganic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that would be the difference when I'm watching it. But I mean, I don't know. You could take a boomerang of me on stage and it looks like a photograph. So I might not be the person to ask that.
But I think it comes down to authenticity again. Like you're saying, you know, like if it's true to you and your comedy style, then it won't seem like you're overselling it. But if it looks like you're trying to do something for the sake of you, like replicating some other version of a comedian you saw, then it will come off as overselling it.
If it looks like you are trying to get into act outs, you know what I mean? Then you're overselling. If it looks like you just found out, oh, I think I need more act outs in my comedy.
Right.
It's like, what? You know, like somebody came up to me and they were like, you should do more act outs. And I was like, why? I don't need to. I mean, I can move more on stage, but I don't need to do act outs. It's not like a thing that it would look like someone having a breakdown. You know, those are just who I am.
Oh, and Carly was sympathizing with your panic attacks on stage. She says she does it all the time where she thinks, what would happen if I got sick on stage? No one would help me. So then I start panicking. Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a weird thing.
But it's just coming back, just trying to be as present as possible, I guess helps. Or like you did with that set, muscling through.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was all so connected because my dog had a seizure.
Right.
And I'd seen somebody have a seizure before, but it was like, that was from like alcohol shit. So like, I hadn't seen a seizure come on all of a sudden. And I just thought maybe there's something in my apartment and maybe I have it too. And I just like, I started like, it was nuts. But yeah, it's crazy. You just go through it. You just breathe.
Just breathe. Remember to breathe.
Yeah.
And this is a business question. Imri asks, is a manager necessary? And if so, when?
A manager is only necessary once you're starting to be approached by managers. Before that, you don't have enough going on for a manager to be able to help you anyway. And I think getting a manager too soon is you're just giving money away for no reason because they're not going to they're really just going to be like answering emails for you, and you might feel important or something, but you'll realize like the managers that come in.
Oh no, we lost her sound. Maybe she'll be back with her other earbuds and we'll wrap this up. Good questions though, kids. Great questions, everyone. We'll go ahead and land this plane here and just like another question. Just because we've been going for a nice minute now, but a lot of great questions, everyone. It's just un momento. And just to piggyback off what she was saying is I interviewed Tamara Goins on the podcast, and she's the head of comedy at Innovative Artists. And she's a manager agent, and she said, you don't need a manager until you have something worth managing. So keep that in mind with your career as well. That just wait till you have something worth managing before you need a manager. And it was interesting to hear Rosebud say earlier that when she talked to a manager at JFL, she already knew what she wanted. And she already had a vision for what she was wanting to accomplish in comedy. So until you know those answers, there's no reason to get like a manager agent or someone to make you feel important, like she said. Cool. Can you hear me? Aw, yeah, thanks for everyone that tuned in there. These are all great questions. And you guys are awesome for tuning in. Be sure to share this as well. Share this with other comics that we out here. And Trent says it's great seeing her upset about her headphones. It is authentic, you're right. But I think that was good. She's about to put in some earbuds, and we're going to wrap this up here. Hey!
Sorry about that.
No, you're great. We'll go ahead and land this plane because we're at about we're at about an hour here. So we got good advice, and I was just talking to them about I had interviewed the head of comedy of Innovative Artists, and she's a manager and agent as well. And her thing was like, you don't need a manager until you have something worth managing. So there's, it's like one piece of just focus on getting funny, and all your opportunities will come from that. So you and your quick success in terms of just 6 years in and all you've been able to do is because you're authentic and you're funny. And I think comedy needs more comedians like you, and I'm thrilled for your success because you're showing not only the comics that it's possible, but it's also like this is how it can be done in an authentic way, which I think is why so many people really I've done several of these, but when I posted you were going to be on here, so many people were just like, yes, she's one of my favorites. They were able to name specific things about like your bits or things they heard you do. And I think that authenticity, that's what makes you so memorable, I think, is your authenticity. So,
yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. That means a lot to me.
Well, I really appreciate you doing this. And, this is like a comedy education show. So before we get out of here, is there any other favorite advice you've gotten or any wisdom you could bestow upon the Hot Breathiverse?
I would just say if you're just getting into comedy, the most important thing, and I hated hearing this, was just get funny. And I know it's like, it's been said so many fucking times, and you, especially when you're like 2 years in, you want like a cheat sheet. I've had comics come up to me and go, what did you do? How did you get where you are? And I'm like, I just wrote jokes and everything kind of took care of itself. And there is like, it's a thing that you can study. Like, you can learn comedy. You don't have to be born funny.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was born funny. I think I kind of, it was like a combination. Like there were things that I did that were funny, but I didn't realize it. And I'm kind of trying to get a little bit more into that. Like, I'm trying to get a little bit more into like the silly side of me, and I'm doing it a lot with my podcast with Andy. Find Your Beach, and
yes.
it's, we'll plug there.
We'll plug it all. Yeah.
But you can learn to get funny. You just have to study comedy the way that, you have to learn comedy, and try to approach it the same way that you would approach learning piano.
Boom. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
it.
gold advice. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole goal with Hot Breath and the podcast and the Comedy Network and all the content we create here is helping comics, giving them access to comedians like you and the lessons you've learned the hard way. But it comes down to, you've got to be willing to put in the work at the end of the day. There's no shortcut.
Oh, I want to say one more.
Yeah.
I want to say one more thing. Also, if you don't have a therapist and you can afford it, get a therapist, because you will learn about yourself. You'll learn deeper parts of yourself. And without that knowledge, you're not going to be able to write from a place of depth. So I think getting a therapist, or like, even if you don't have one, if you can't afford one, get a journal. Start like asking yourself questions about shit, any kind of question where it's like, why do I fear this thing? Right? Why do I fear losing my career? Right? If your answer to that question, that question holds a lot, right? If your answer to that question is, I don't know, you have a shitload to learn about yourself. If you can't answer, why am I afraid of being alone, in a way that's like, you have a definitive answer, you have a lot to learn about yourself. So like, there's so many things about us that we have to discover to get funny and to get real with our audience. And I think we kind of have to excavate shit from ourselves that other people aren't really willing to excavate.
Mm-hmm.
Comics have to be honest with themselves in a way that other people don't want to be. So that's the other part of the advice that I give.
And if you don't know those answers yet and you can't afford therapy, how do you excavate that? Is it just repetition of asking yourself over and over again?
Well, it's like, why am I okay? I'll give you an example of like, so let's say, all right, if I was going to answer that question, why am I afraid of being alone? Because I don't want to die alone. Okay. Why don't you want to die alone? Because if I die alone, it'll be sad. And it's like, okay, for who? For me. Okay, but you'll be dead. So what is it really? You know what I mean? Like, and the truth of the matter is like, why am I afraid of being alone? Because I don't want to feel all of my feelings. Because I'm still judging sadness as something bad is happening, right? But that's not necessarily true. If you're sad, it doesn't mean something bad is happening. It means that you, I could just keep going with this, but you get it. Like, just yourself through it. Ask yourself the questions. Ask yourself what's at stake, and really answer it, like from a place of real vulnerability, and just see what you find out about yourself.
I love that. That's some of my favorite advice. We've interviewed over 200 comics, but that's some of my favorite advice right there. That self-reflection and like self-excavation. I really love that. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for being willing to share that also.
Yeah. Well, what else is 7 years of therapy going to do?
Well worth the price. So you had started to plug earlier, but please please plug everything you have going on, please. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, so I have a podcast called Devil's Advocate on all things comedy. That comes out every Tuesday. I've been doing them alone lately, which I wasn't the plan originally, but I'm kind of loving it. I also have a podcast called Find Your Beach with my Beyonce, Andy Haynes, and we wake up every morning. We've podcasted every single day of the quarantine. That one is very silly and stupid and gross and fun. And what else? What else do I have going on? I'm doing a segment for The Weekly, which is Australia's daily show. I'll be doing some correspondent work on that. And then besides that, that's it. I'm heading back to New York next week, and I'm just going to go right into the belly of the beast.
What?
Yep.
What?
Yeah, I needed to get on a plane. I can't stay here anymore. This is purgatory, and I want them to let me into hell. So
that's how
I'm done.
Wow. I blame Andy for that. The quarantine with a fiance has driven you to ground zero.
He wanted to stay, and I was like, absolutely not. We got to go back to New York.
And he's going with you. He's going to also?
Yeah.
That is love, that he's willing to. Yo. All right. Well, this may be it. So I'm glad we got Rosebud at the 0 hour here. That's great. Yeah. And all your social media, or anything they can follow you, is it all Rosebud Baker, I believe?
Yeah. It's Rosebud Baker on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all that jazz, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. I'm same on all of them.
Oh, this has been so great.
It's called branding, kids.
Yes, keep it all the same. There, some people are Gumby on Twitter, and then they're Jedi27 on Instagram. Keep it all the same.
Yeah,
beautiful. All right, well, that's it. Hot Breathiverse. Go forth, support Rosebud, follow her, listen to all of her podcasts, and we will see you back here with another Comedians on Skype Talking Comedy. Yeah. Everyone's saying great. Thanks, Rosebud. Everyone's saying great job. Everyone loved it. All right, y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks
so much
day.
for having me.
Of course. Thanks for putting so much great comedy out there for us to enjoy. Bye.
Absolutely. That's so sweet. This was really fun.
Oh, good. Yeah, we'll have to get let's see what other comics we can get on here. You think of any other comics that may enjoy doing this?
I mean, Andy might like doing it if you want to have Andy on. It'd be so funny if you were like, nah, he's sitting right here.
Yeah. We'll schedule one to do with Andy. Yeah, I've been a fan of Andy since he did a Modern Comedian. Did you ever see that Modern Comedian he did, where it was him preparing for a Conan set? You never even saw your fiance's content. Yeah, this was several years ago. Scott Moran, who's like a director in comedy now, he did this web series about comedians, and his with Andy was him preparing for his first Conan set. So, yeah, I've been hip to Andy for a minute. So, yeah, we'll definitely connect after this and get Andy on here soon. All right, Hot Breathiverse.
Yeah.
Have a good day. We love you all. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Hot Brethren and Sistren. If you love comedy as much as we do here at Hot Breath, click the subscribe button to join the Hot Breathiverse, and then watch more videos to get even more comedy tips. Hot Breath.